I'm Tammy Kolda, an applied mathematician, and this is Unlocking LaTeX Graphics. On this YouTube channel, I am providing a detailed how-to guide on using TIXI and PGFPLOTS. These videos are based on my book, Unlocking LaTeX Graphics, as well as some bonus materials. Today's episode is about number formats in PGFPLOTS. We've talked previously about how to specify the xticks and yticks using the xtick and ytick keys. When you do that, you can specify the labels of those ticks manually using xtick labels and ytick labels. Today's episode is about general formatting of tick labels without needing to specify them manually. In general, PGFPLOTS does a good job on its own. However, if you want your numbers to be formatted in a very particular way, this episode is for you. One thing that PGFPLOTS does is automatically scale very small or large values. The first thing I'll do is show you how to disable that or have more fine-grained control. Then I'll get into some details of formatting, such as the number of digits of precision. This is one of a series of videos on TIXI and PGFPLOTS, so please check out the other videos on this channel to learn more. Real quick, I'll just go through our document preamble for today. The first group of packages here are just conveniences. Parskip and full page are just to make things look nice. The hyperref package is so that I can link the author name back to the YouTube channel, as you see over here. The important package is, of course, PGFPLOTS. I've also set a few options using PGFPLOTSet. These are setting the compatibility to 1.17, scaling the axis to only change the axis side and not leave any extra space for extra stuff. And so I set the axis size to be 8 centimeters by 5 centimeters. I set every axis title shift to 3-point, which will make the title slightly closer to the top of the plot. I've specified the title to be my data plot, the X label to be X, and the Y label to be Y. These settings will be applied to all the plots in the document. I've given more details about these settings in prior episodes, and I'll link to those in the show notes. I'm showing a data file on the screen. I created this data file so that the X values are very small, on the order of 10 to the minus 2, and the Y values are very large, on the orders of 10 to the 4. Let me go ahead and paste some code here, and then we'll compile it and see what we have. This is just a basic plot. If you want to know more about the basics, please watch the earlier videos on PGFPLOTS. The thing to notice is that PGFPLOTS has automatically scaled the tick labels on both the X and Y axes. Observe that the Y ticks are scaled by 10 to the 4, with the scaling listed above the upper left corner of the plot. Likewise, the X ticks are scaled by 10 to the minus 2, with the scaling listed below the last X tick mark. I personally don't really like the automatic scaling by PGFPLOTS because it sometimes looks ugly. So the first thing I'll do is show you how to turn it off. To turn off the scaling in both directions, just set the scaled ticks to be false in the axis options. Let me go ahead and paste that here. So I'm setting scaled ticks equals false. And now you see both tick labels have gotten rid of the scaling. If you just want it to be in one direction or the other, you can just put X or Y in between scaled and ticks followed by a space. So let's say I just want to turn off the scaling for the Y tick marks. So if I do that, now I have no scaling in Y and scaling in X because I didn't specify anything and it went ahead and did it automatically. Alternatively, if I want to force the tick marks to be scaled or change the scale parameters, I can set scaled X ticks or scaled Y ticks to be base 10 colon followed by a value that indicates how the ticks should be scaled. It's the negative of what the scale factor is. So let me just give you an example. If I type here base 10 colon minus 3, it's going to scale the Y tick marks by 10 to the third. And that means it's multiplied them all by 10 to the minus 3. Now suppose I wanted to change the scaling of the X ticks. Right now it's 10 to the minus 2. If I say scaled X ticks equals base 10 colon 3, now my scaling will be 10 to the minus 3, as you can see over here. Now let's look at the formatting of numbers. I've queued us up by going ahead and pasting our basic plot again. Suppose I wanted to have all the numbers of the y-axis to have the same number of decimal places no matter what. Right now, there's 1.5, but then there's only 1. I would like it to be 1.0. The way to get this is to do some of these number formatting options. These go inside the axis options and then inside the X-tick label style or the Y-tick label style. The command's always preceded by this awkward thing, /pgf/ number format slash before you get down to what you actually want. It's awkward and long. There are ways to avoid all that typing that I cover in my book, but I generally recommend to just go ahead and type everything out in order to avoid other possible issues. So let's go ahead and set the zero fill option for LaTeX labels so that every number has the same number of decimal places. I did this by pasting LaTeX label style equals /PGF/number format /zero fill. So now we see that everybody has filled in all their zeros and it's using a default precision of 2. I would like to change that because now the problem is that I actually have too many decimal places. So I'll go ahead and set PGF number format precision to be 1. Now everything only has 1 digit. So I have 1.5, 1.0, but now 0.5 has been converted to scientific format. So the last thing I need to do is go ahead and turn on fixed format. And so now I'll print all my numbers in fixed precision by saying PGF/number format /fixed. So it took 3 keys to get where we wanted to be, but now we have all our numbers printing with 1 decimal point in fixed notation. Let's do another example without scaling. Again, I've already queued us up. I pasted an example over here and compiled it. It's the basic example, except for I've set scaled x-ticks to be false. And so what we see is that the result is that the x-ticks are using sort of a 0 here, but then for the rest of them, they're using an exponential format. So the first thing I'll do to make things look the way I want is I'll go ahead and set x-tick label style to have the key PGF number format fixed. So that might be all I need to do, except for now I don't have enough decimal places. The default precision is 2, and what you can see here is that these numbers are so tiny that that's not enough. So the next thing I want to do is specify the precision to be 3. So I do PGF number format precision equals 3. And now I get much nicer numbers and I can see what I need to see. I could go on to specify zero fill as well if we want every number to be printed with the same number of digits. I want to tell you about one other formatting option I think is really helpful, which is specifying the separator for the thousands. We'll start again with our same picture, but this time I've turned off scaled LaTeX. Now suppose I want to get rid of those commas in the 15,000, 10,000, 5,000, and so on. How can I do that? Well, the way to do that is to set the thousand separator to be nothing. So I'll just go ahead and set my LaTeX label style to have PGF number format 1000 sep equal empty braces. It could also just be equal with nothing following it, and that would also work. Now you see that my commas have disappeared, and so that might look better depending on what you're doing. Generally, it's fine to have commas, but it's a major headache if you're printing something like a year. It doesn't really make sense to have 1,974 for the year 1974. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I covered a few options for formatting numbers in your plots. I think these are the most critical options, but there are others if you have more specific needs. I discuss a few more in my book, as well as some shortcuts that might be helpful to maybe avoid a little bit of that typing. There's a link to the overleaf document we created today in the show notes. If you like this video, please click like or subscribe. You can also buy my book, Unlocking LaTeX Graphics, at your favorite book retailer. Thanks for watching.